Who would have thunk that in the year 2024, that the only son of a gun who can make a 30-year later sequel and have it be pretty damn good, just like the first, would be Tim Burton? Now look, I'm just kind of talking here. I haven't really been keeping up with which directors have been making sequels 30 years forward. I'm just thinking more so in terms of like the constant reboots and remakes that are being made nowadays that never are good. But here comes Timmy Burton swinging and hitting with Beetlejuice. I mean, honestly, it's very impressive to see how the quality has consistently remained from the original to now. I think that they're very on par with one another. I mean, I think nostalgia and my love for that kind of style of the time when the original Beetlejuice was made would probably say that I like the original better, but I could definitely see kids growing up now that would see both movies and think that this one's better just because that's what they're growing up with. And so let's kind of talk about some things. Let's talk about the good, let's talk about the bad, and then let's talk about the final take. So the good. Ultimately, the movie does a very good job of not feeling like a bunch of member berries. I don't think this movie does anything really that makes it like call back to the original. It more so just kind of does a story, and it's in the same world, it's following the same characters, which you would think, you know, is what most sequels would do, but no, most sequels, they're just like, hey, remember this thing, hey, remember that thing, hey, remember this, remember that. But this is just another movie. It's just another Beetlejuice movie telling another story, and it's awesome because one of my favorite things that Tim Burton does in this film, which I gotta hand it to him, is he just has fun. He just does whatever he wants to do, and it's the same thing in the original Beetlejuice, is that both films, their stories are just kind of okay. It's not really that important. Like, it's just kind of there. It all kind of gets resolved very quickly for the most part. For the most part, it's just kind of the world that he built, and it's about having fun in that world, exploring different kinds of fun, unique concepts, and blasting it, you know, going crazy. I mean, this sequence has a whole like claymation section, which is just fun, and it's not like needing to be explained. It's just there, and it's there loud and proud. And ultimately, that's the other thing is about having fun with the story, is that the story, he doesn't care. Tim Burton could not care less about the story and the intricacies of the rules of living and death. And, you know, I think it's kind of told a little bit in the way that the handbook is written, where nobody can really understand the thing. Everyone expects you to understand it, but it doesn't really matter all that much when it comes to the story of the film, where who cares? It just, life and death have their rules, and sometimes they're different, sometimes they're not different. It all depends on whatever Timmy Burton wants. So, for example, there's times where they just kind of wave off things. Like, I'll say this is kind of a spoiler, but not really, because, I mean, you've seen the trailers, I'm sure. They don't have Alec Baldwin and the other actress. I'm sorry, I can't blank on the name right now, but they're not in the film, which, you know, but judging on how the last one ended, you would imagine they would be there. And it's kind of waved off very quickly, excuse me, because they're asked, you know, like, so what happened to them? And then Lydia Dietz is just like, oh, you know, we found a loophole, they actually moved on, and that's it. And that is all that's mentioned of them, and it's never brought up again, and that's over. And that's not the only time it happens. Is that another time, there's a specific ghost that for some reason Lydia cannot see. She can see all the other ghosts except for this ghost. And they're like, why not? And she's like, I don't know. And you know something? She doesn't know. Nobody knows. She has the opportunity to ask later on, maybe try and get some clarification, but she doesn't care because Timmy doesn't care. You know, he's making this story, and he's like, you're going to enjoy the story or you're not going to enjoy the story. I'm just making this story, and I don't care. I don't care if you get it or you don't get it. It's just going to be what it is. And you can see that because, again, a lot of the different things that he does in this film is very unique to this film, where they don't explore in the original. There are some things that come back, like the sandworms, and there are some unique things like new kind of enemy, new animation styles, and very old school comedy as well, where it feels like Timmy Burton actually is able to make this new movie fit very well in kind of this modern day contemporary feel, while also still retaining a lot of the roots of his original comedy. And I think a lot of that really does stem from Michael Keaton's Beetlejuice, is that I think that he plays it so well and he's such a brilliant actor that I think it didn't really, I think his character was the most unchanged from the original to now. Like I watched them back to back today. I literally watched Beetlejuice and then Beetlejuice 2 and then Twisters and 40X. And so I'm having a great day. But back to Beetlejuice. My Beetlejuice is the exact same. He hasn't changed one bit, and you know it makes sense. And I think that that's a very grounding character to kind of make everything else happen around. Because I mean, you have a new actress like Jenna Ortega, you have Winona Ryder coming back, and Catherine O'Hara. Oh my God, I don't really know how to pronounce it, but Catherine, she's great. And ultimately, they all just have a really fun, really good story. I mean, no, honestly, no. The story's fine. It's just like the original Beetlejuice. It's just a decent story. It's enough to enjoy the world, pretty much. And ultimately, yeah, that's just my favorite stuff. Is that it feels just like the original, just told today instead of told back in the day. And I love that. I think that all of the performances are good. There's not really one that didn't feel that right. I think Justin Theroux was in it, if I'm not mistaken. And I think maybe his was more the strangest character, but I don't really think that's his fault. I think that that's just the character. I think the character's just strange, and so it comes off strange. But you know, that's Timmy Burton. I like all of the new kind of characters that are introduced. I like the kind of story twists that are just, you know, there to keep things going. I like all the new elements of the underworld they add and different monsters and such. And ultimately, there's just a lot of positive things, but I don't really want to get into spoilers, and so we won't. But I can say without a shadow of a doubt that he did great. He popped off like crazy, making just another good fun movie that feels just like the original, but just told 2024. Now, I guess we can just move on to the... Now, I'm trying to think of something that's bad in the film, but to be quite honest, this is one of those films where it's, when you know the director, it becomes kind of difficult to really critique the film on the basis of it being a film. Because, like I said, I could critique the story for being just kind of, laissez-faire, not really being that in-depth, not really being like a crazy story. But that's not what Beetlejuice is about. That's not what he wanted to do to begin with. And so it's like ultimately looking at it through the lens of, a Tim Burton film, and looking at the lens of Beetlejuice as a second film, it's just good. Like there's really nothing that I can really critique about it that would make it be bad in terms of like just other films. Like I guess you don't have to sacrifice story to have fun. I think that I would like to see a more complex and a lot more of a good story to be attached to all of the fun we're having. So I guess being able to pull that off alongside with it would be good, but ultimately I'm not complaining. He had fun, I had fun. So again, that's just me kind of making something where it's like, ultimately, could it be like an amazing film? Yeah, sure. If you wanted to go ahead and go more in depth with making a more through a line and more comprehensive story rather than just kind of a narrative to build a world around, sure, then that would be kind of my only critique, is that the story plays second fiddle. But I can say that about the original Beetlejuice, and I think both films are incredible. So honestly, I don't really have anything bad to say. The music choices here, I'm sorry, we're in the bad section, but I'm gonna say the music choices were really good. Everything was just, it's fun, it was funny, it was weird. I mean, it's just like the original. And so only bad I guess is that the story isn't anything crazy, but neither was the original. So what are you gonna do? Let's finish it off. Ultimately, my final thoughts on it is that it's impressive, so impressive to see a director be able to make a sequel this late in the game in both their life and in comparison to when the original was released, and have it be right up there. I have no complaints. I have nothing bad to say about it, really. I think it's just a really good movie. He had fun. It seems like all the cast had fun, and that's awesome too. It's just a good time. All the way around, it's a good time. There's really nothing negative to say about it. And when I'm rating the film, I'm giving it in terms of what I expected, and in terms of like basing it on against what I would want to see, as opposed to kind of comparing it to like other films, I guess would be the best way to put it. Because if I'm comparing it to other films, I think ultimately it, you know, it just ends up on a lower score, because I wouldn't necessarily choose this film to be one that's like, oh, this is one that I really want to see. You know, this is just a fun time. And so when you have a fun time film, I don't think you can really go any higher than an 800. I think that ultimately this is the kind of film that deserves its flowers for being really fun and really great. But when it's just kind of focusing on doing its thing and having a fun time and being what it is, I can't really in good conscience give it anything crazy. Because if you ask me, like, in terms of like, what did you expect from a Tim Burton film, what would you give it? I would say it's like a solid 900 in terms of like expecting and getting what I wanted from Tim Burton. But I'm gonna say now that I'm gonna rate this just on the basis of like films across the board, I guess, is that I would probably put this at a maybe like a 799. I think 799. I think it's right up there where it's, he nailed it. He did everything right. It was perfect for what he did, and that's all you can ask for, really. And so ultimately I feel mixed on giving it that review at that score, just because, like I said, there's nothing bad to say about it in terms of like what I wanted and what I expected from it. But at the same time, it just, I wouldn't watch it again, I don't think. But I'm also that way with like 99% of movies that are even good. Like, I only watch them for special occasions, and I can't think of an occasion where I'd be like, yeah, I really want to see Beetlejuice, you know? So yeah, overall, I think 799 is a very fair score. I think the movie is great. I think you'll probably see even higher scores from other people. That's my personal philosophy on rating right now, I guess. Sometimes I change it, but then I say why I change it or whatever, and whatever. But who cares? Either way, go watch it. Beetlejuice is fun. All the marketing is fun. The cast is great. Ultimately, there's really nothing negative I can say about it. It's just a good time. It's just a good time. So thank you everybody for watching. This has been Kino. My name is Kino, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. And I'll catch you later.